And to break his where you play more of Dubbo's best music for the 80s to now, that's Britney and You Drive Me Crazy. That's a fan favourite of Dubbo Region Mayors. I'm just making that up. Good morning, Matthew Dickinson. How are you?
Very good, thank you. I do worry sometimes, Brett, whether you put songs on just
for you,
to suit me, and then when you have a song that says You Drive Me Crazy, I'm going, no, Brett, no, what's going on?
No, I don't.
One thing that I'm very impressed with here, though, this morning is that you're obviously not in this studio very often, but you've come out and you've made a big change here. The clock on the wall is showing the correct time now because there's been a battery replacement. I'm very impressed.
Well, Keegan doesn't sort of use the analog clocks in here, it seems. I don't think.
To be fair to
Keegan,
the clock that I'm talking about is the clock that's at the back of Keegan's head. So
yes, that's right. You can't see it anyway.
It doesn't really matter that it's got the wrong time. Oh, it's actually got a very accurate time twice a day.
So where you're sitting is usually where the duo sits, right? And we still haven't got anyone, and that's what the clock is for the other person, not for him. And he's got a little one up there, but I don't think he ever looks. A couple of things we wanted to talk to you about. Keegan mentioned to me he wanted to ask you the question about the Dubbo Regional Airport and how it'll be impacted by the voluntary administration that Rex Airlines has gone into, and there's some access fees there at the airport. Is that something council will be able to change to sort of help them out, or is that something you've considered?
Well, it's not really something we've considered. We could do that, of course. Now, I'll go back and answer your first question first. Obviously, Rex is one of the two major airlines that services Dubbo in terms of the traffic, the passenger numbers. We've got some other great airlines that service Dubbo as well, Link Airways, Airlink, owned by Rex and Pelican. So we've got some other airlines, but obviously the Dubbo-Sydney route is the busiest route there. 195,000 passengers we had last financial year. Approximately, off the top of my head, maybe 55,000 of those passengers were with Rex. So Rex plays a very important role for Dubbo in terms of the passenger numbers we have, and obviously competition keeps prices reasonable, but also flexibility, different times of the day. So that's all very important to us. We've had the discussion in past times, and I haven't had a specific discussion with councillors in this situation now, but around all of our businesses, we try, wherever possible, to make sure those businesses aren't being subsidised by the community. The whole sale yards debate, part of that was driven by the fact that the sale yards was not running at a profit, so it was being subsidised by the community. So that all those changes that were made there was in response to that. The airport, on a day-to-day basis, comes out in the black, but when we've got major infrastructure, anything that happens at an airport seems to be incredibly expensive, whether it's to do with the runway, security screening. So we want to make sure that our community is not subsidising the airport. If we said, let's make our passenger fees much cheaper for everyone, let's make them so that the airlines aren't paying those passenger fees, hopefully they'd pass that on, then again, what would happen is we'd be subsidising the airport from the community. And at this stage, the council has made decisions in the past to say that's not fair. And just to give you an idea, approximately $19.45 is what you pay when you buy a ticket on a flight from Dubbo or to Dubbo with, say, Qantas or Rex, then you're paying council about $19.45 for each of those tickets. So there is a fee, there's certainly a component of your ticket price that goes to council to maintain that airport, but that's the same everywhere. There's a passenger fee that you'll pay when you land at Sydney Airport, get some of that passenger fee. When you land at any airport around the nation, I don't know any airport that says they're going to be free, although some airports I do know, for example, in WA, some regional airports in WA are subsidised by the government to make those landing fees cheaper.
And Matt, we might point out to our listeners from last week, Qantas as well as, what was the other one? Virgin have said that they'll pick up those flights to transfer if they're on the same routes. And we're talking about the sub, what are they called? The 340? 640?
The sub 340.
340, yeah, the 340. The smaller ones are okay for now and will continue to fly. But this could have an impact on all of regional airports, couldn't it, whatever the decision is out of all of this?
We've had discussions before with Catherine King, the Minister, to say that there are many regional airports, and ours are okay, but about 60% of regional airports struggle to be in the black on their day-to-day running. So we've had the discussion before to say that airports, regional airports, are vital for those communities, and Dubbo's pretty well off, but you go to some smaller communities, regional airports absolutely vital for the connection, the transport connections that they've got there. So having those local councils having to subsidise from the community is a tough ask, and that's where we've talked to Catherine King before about what we can have set up to help with some of those various airports across the nation, including Dubbo. But Dubbo's got enough passengers going through there that it's usually okay on that day-to-day running. It's really just the larger projects that we need some help with.
All right, can we pivot to Dubbo Regional Council and the end of term report? Because this basically shows us what the yearly highlights of what council's achieved.
Well, not just the yearly highlights, this is the end of term report. So the Local Government Act says that in an election year, the council must do an end of term report for the previous 4 years. Now, this council term's been reduced. This has been, about the time of the election comes around, about 2 years and 9 months. So this report is a 3-year report. We did the public presentation of that about a week ago, and there's certain information on socials and various information available on the council website to show all the things that have occurred in this term of council. And it's been a very busy, very active 2.5, 2 3/4 years of council. But when we look back at it, in fact, when I spoke to other councillors who attended the public event, just looking back over it going, wow, we've forgot about that. That was so long ago. It was 2 years ago, but gee, we did that and we did this. So there's a lot of things that have occurred. I would say an incredibly successful term. Obviously, I'm biased, but just looking at feedback from the community and getting information from the community, things are going well. And people have said to me things like, council's no longer on the front page for bad stories. Council's not on the front page that much, and that's good. It's a bit like a referee in a footy match. You don't really want the referee featuring in the conversation about the match afterwards. You want the match, and people in the community, you don't want to be talking about council, you want people to be talking about the community and the wonderful things that are happening. And when we are on the front page, it's usually for a good news story rather than a bad news story, which might have happened in the past.
Because there was a couple of years there where they were all dark stories towards the end of the other term before this last term of council as well.
Well, we started off in a pretty tough environment. It was in turmoil. We had a performance improvement order hanging over our heads. That was put on council on the 29th of June 2021. It wasn't lifted until the 18th of May 2022. So when we came onto council, we had that hanging over our heads. And if we hadn't have made sure things were going correctly, we might have been a very short term of council. We might have been suspended or sacked. And that's really the performance improvement order is the first step to that. 2 councillors resigned on the last council. There were 2 different mayors, 2 different deputy mayors. There were 5 CEOs over the term of that last council. So there was a fair bit of turmoil there. And then the election showed what the community thought. Out of the 10 councillors on the previous council, only 1 of those councillors was re-elected. So there was a lack of council experience and obviously a lack of Dubbo Regional Council in particular experience.
I'd imagine as a collective, councillors must be pretty happy with what they've been able to achieve as a group.
Certainly when you talk to the councillors, the group, and there were 7 councillors at the presentation. It's hard for councillors to get to every event, so there were 7 councillors there, and all 7, including myself obviously, all spoke at the event when we did the public presentation and all talked about the term of council and just the learnings. But again, from all the councillors I speak with, very satisfied with where we've ended up. Again, the short term is probably a little bit frustrating because there's lots of things that are in train now and things are happening, and then there's all of a sudden, another election coming up. So it's probably been a little bit frustrating as a short term, but I think what council's been able to achieve in that short term has been quite incredible.
All right, you've got one last ordinary meeting of council on the 15th of August. That's just Thursday week.
Not too far away.
And then you go into a caretaker mode.
Correct, that's right. So that'll be our 35th meeting of council on this particular council on the 15th of August. 16th of August, caretaker mode starts. And caretaker mode means we're still councillors, I'm still the mayor, but the general direction is not to make large decisions, not to make binding decisions about large issues, not to make controversial decisions or controversial DAs. Define controversial for me, I'm not sure what that is. Maybe everything's controversial. Not to appoint a new CEO in that time frame. So there are some limits, but you're still there as a council. You're still able to respond to things if need be. You don't cease being a councillor until the 14th of September.
All right. Perhaps a new bunch of councillors coming in with a slight difference. You'll have 10 councillors for the next time that we vote people in.
No, 11 will have this time.
Sorry.
Yeah,
yes,
11.
Sorry, forward.
The most important part about that, Brett, will be the fact that there'll be no wards. So the last 2 elections have had 5 wards with 2 people elected in each of those wards, depending on where you lived in terms of which ward you voted in. Now, sensibly, it'll be 1 council area because it is 1 council area. It's Dubbo Regional Council, local government area, so there'll be 1 election and an odd number again, which is much better because obviously when you vote for things on council, you prefer the mayor not to have to use the casting vote, which the Local Government Act says the mayor must do if there's a tied vote, but also there were many years ago when we had 12 councillors on Dubbo City Council, and sometimes when there was a mayoral election on, 6-all, and the mayor's name was drawn out of a bucket. So that's not a great way to win or lose.
Without mentioning that Ames, a few councillors have put their name up to rerun. Will there be enough time for us to get to know the councillors, not here at Zoo, but in the community before we actually vote?
I hope so. And the closing date is the 14th of August, so the closing date for nominations. So people are already announcing, and that's fine. But even by that date, you'll know all the councillors running, or the potential councillors running on the 14th of August. So you'll have a month there, and obviously it's up to those individual candidates to make sure they talk to the community and let them know that they're standing and let them know what they stand for.
If someone's listening right now, they want to put their hand up to stand for council, how do they go about that?
Go to the New South Wales Electoral Commission site and have a look there. There's a number of guides, a number of rules for you to go through and look at. But I encourage people, if you've got a community bent, if you think you can do something good for the community, the more people we have stand, the better group we're going to end up with in council, the better it is for the community. So absolutely, I'd encourage people to look at that.
All right, before I let you go, you've had a tour, an inspection at the New Dubbo Bridge. Tell me about that, because I was hoping you were going to tell me it's going to be open soon, but it's not going to be open for a while.
No, I've got my Obnal boots on at the moment. I've got my steel cap boots on underneath the bench here. So we had an inspection of the New Dubbo Bridge, which is obviously not a great name, but there is a naming process going on at the moment as we speak for that. And this was just a chance for councillors to go and look at that particular bridge. It's not something that we run, it's not our project, it's Transport for New South Wales, but it's always good for councillors to be up to date with what's happening in the community. The official date that it should be finished at this stage, weather permitting, is the end of 2026. And we walked across some of the decks of the bridge there this morning, so you look at that and you think, wow, look at this, these decks are done already. Surely it can't take another 2.5 years, close enough to, before it's finished. And there may be some traffic on it before the end of 2026. There may be some more intersection work done, but it's a big project, and so there's still a lot of people on that site, a lot of people doing work there. There was a huge amount of activity we saw there this morning, but it was actually good to see that project, just to see how high it is. Obviously it's got to be above the 1 in 100 year flood, so it's fairly high there, and we walked across to where it joins up. It's not across the river yet, but it joins up to where the spot will go across the river and back from that side from an easterly direction.
Did the project leader that obviously would have taken you across sort of point out what they still have to do?
Well, it was pretty obvious. We walked to a certain point, and if you kept walking, you would have fallen off the edge.
Oh,
so,
gotcha, okay.
So they probably need a few more decks to be put on
Right.
there. But they've done all the driving of the pylons, so all the pylons are basically done there now. So we used to hear that noise for a long period of time around Dubbo, the driving of those pylons, and they're friction pylons. So essentially they've got to drive them down far enough, and they had to go further than they thought until there's enough friction there to hold the weight of that bridge and all the vehicles on it, etc. So they're basically putting the decks out now. They'll have a fair bit of work to do to finish off those decks. Then they've got obviously things like asphalt to put on top of that, railings to put on the side. So you look at that and you rattle a few things off. Oh, it's only a few months' work, but obviously it's a lot of work still to be done there.
You got a busy week ahead?
Busy week. It's incredibly busy. Dubbo's exciting at the moment. It is really boom times for Dubbo at the moment, so it's exciting at the moment, I think, in Dubbo, to be involved in Dubbo and Wellington. So yeah, every day is busy. Today I think I've got meetings that go through till about 9 o'clock tonight, and we started at 6:45 a.m. this morning over at the bridge, and it'll keep going through. I did actually look at my calendar for today and said I don't know how I'm going to fit everything in today, but most importantly I got to Zoo and see you.
Yeah, that's it. I better let you go so you can meet the other appointments. Dubbo Region Mayor Matt Dickers, and nice to see you.
Good, thanks Brad.
Thanks very much. At 24 past 8.